Hey Clark, how's it going?
Hey Nathan, pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Right on. Yeah, I'm just working on the Bloggly exercise right now. Making some pretty good progress with that. Yeah, the hardest thing was kind of understanding how quest.form.get list worked. Um, um, yeah, I guess I just got it working. I glanced at the answer and I was like, can I share my screen?
Yeah, of course.
Um, is that sharing?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, um, yeah, so it seemed to say that this gave me a list. And then I guess the important thing here is, and I went and looked at kind of the video where they kind of explain how to do this using the in query operator. So that would create a list of query objects. Is that what you would kind of call them?
Yeah, query
Yeah.
objects.
That's really the big thing. Is first I was kind of trying to pass in the list just right here, and then I went and looked. Oh, okay, I need to pass them in as like these query objects, or it won't really understand correctly, right? So yeah, and then on the submit edit post, um, I did something similar, but it seemed like this is how I figured out how to do. It shows you how to append. I guess you could do append all here, right?
Append
Wasn't there an
all.
append all?
Yeah, I guess you can do append all and then do like a post tags.
Well, so could I do this?
Append all. That should work, yeah. And then you can remove the for loop.
I just remembered that. Yeah, I did find this section actually to be pretty. Most everything was explained. Which was nice. I felt like when I forgot something, I was able to go find it in the videos. So yeah, and I think it feels good to start to get some repetition on this stuff because I think up to this point the course has been moving really fast, and now it's like now we're kind of using a lot of the stuff from before to kind of create this stuff. So that kind of feels good. I feel like I'm someone who wants to kind of like get the reps down, get the practice in, so that I can start to feel a little more comfortable. But yeah, and then just a lot of like little syntax errors of like when there's so many routes, just like forgetting, like if you're copying something to change something. I've been running into that, but it's kind of nice that it kind of tells you your errors in the I guess Flask kind of tells you your errors, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I got this working pretty good. Yeah, what did you want to go over today?
For today, because last week I marked your Forex assignments.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can go over that one. But you're
Okay.
right, because this is a lot of information and course materials you went through from SQL, and now they have the Alchemy, which has this objects um, type sort of thing. So it is a lot of materials to take in, and it's fairly easy to mix up how to say like syntax. Like you're probably wondering like, am I allowed to use this function here, or should I be using this function there? So don't feel bad like if you mix things up. It's really normal, especially if you're trying to put so many information in such a short time. So don't feel bad
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, the big thing was just like the sequel exercise that was supposed to take like 3 to 5 hours last week, where we were like, what's it called when you're taking one table and putting it into other tables?
Join?
The word.
Like join?
No, like it's more like when you're kind of creating more tables out of one table. Normalizing?
Yeah, normalization.
So that was definitely tricky, and like kind of figuring out the like making the charts and figuring that out. That took like way longer, but I was more like just I thought it took a while to like figure out how the tables were going to work, and then input the data correctly and not have any errors. And then after that, just like testing the data by kind of creating like what I did was I created like a table where I joined kind of all of them together to make sure all the information was like lining up correctly. But I do feel like I'm understanding it better. It's just tough when it's like, your first couple of days with the new kind of language. But yeah, the Bloggly exercise has been challenging, but it hasn't been like too hard, which is kind of nice. Been making mistakes and then being able to fix them. It's been kind of a nice path of like fixing problems as opposed to getting stuck on one problem for way too long and getting frustrated. So
yeah, and that also highlights the importance of like, because you mentioned Flask is doing a good job in showing you the error messages here and there. So I guess the lesson from here is like it's important for as a developer that whenever you are creating a function, make sure you display appropriate errors, like specific errors for each specific handling, so that in the future, say, if there's errors being displayed, not only you, but the other developers or even the users, when they see the errors, they can be like, oh, so this is exactly what happened.
Yeah, I haven't quite gotten there yet, I guess, at least on this one. There's not really any error handling. But I've got the basic functionality working, which is good. So, yeah, I guess the big thing with the Forex, I'll close this out, would be the issue I was having with the not being able to load the Python module, the Forex Python module, in the virtual environment.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I'd love to like look at that with you, and I guess show you what I'm doing.
Okay.
I think I probably need to. So I have a question. So I'm running this server right here. Can I leave this running and then just open a new terminal window? This is the server for the Bloggly application.
That should be fine. I mean, when you are running the server, is it running inside a virtual environment?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you remember the port? The port that is running with?
Yeah, it's localhost 5000.
5000. Okay. So as long as it doesn't, the other application that you are going to run, it doesn't use the same port, then it should be fine.
So will it? Do you have to? Because I think it's always been 5000, but I've only been running one server at a time. If I just start up a server, will it just find a different host, a different port?
Well, I don't think so because it has like a default port, and I believe by default it's 5000. So in this case, if 5000 has been used, it's going to give you an error and say it's like 5000 ports been used or something like that.
Okay. Well, that's all. That's all good. I mean, it's not the hardest thing to restart the other server if need be, but I just want to show you. Like, I'm wondering why this isn't working because it worked on your end, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So let's just go into that. I think that was is that a Flask? I'm trying to think where Python. Okay. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up the virtual environment. I'm going to uninstall Forex. I think that makes the most sense. So Okay, so I'm going to go pip list. So you can see Forex Python is installed. If we look at the version of Python we're running, and maybe I'm doing this wrong, but it's kind of good for you to kind of see how I'm doing this. Oh, is it just Python 3 or Python-V?
Yeah, just
so I'm in 3.8.5, which is up to date. So I'm going to uninstall. Oh,
pip.
Oh yeah, pip uninstall. Okay, cool. So should I just reinstall it, or should I leave the environment and come back in?
Oh
well, I probably need to uninstall it from. Let's just make sure it's uninstalled. Okay, so now we're in this. I think it's on the hard because it wouldn't work unless uninstall. Okay, so nothing's installed. Okay, so let's go back into it. Okay, now we're going to install pip install. Cool, so now that's been installed. Okay, so now we should be able to start up the server. Okay, already in use. So I'm going to just, I guess, close this server. Oh, this is not the right one. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I think that closed it. Okay, so I'm going to try that again. All right, cool. So this is the error I was getting. And as soon as I install Forex Python on like the computer, it works. And so I don't know if you want to look at that or.
Okay. Do you have the Flask installed outside of the virtual machine?
I believe so.
Okay, that might be why.
So would that mean I have to install Flask on every single application I make?
Inside the virtual environment, yes. Otherwise, it's gonna be. Yeah, because I had a problem before because then it would point to the Flask outside of the virtual environment.
Okay, so that's what the issue is, you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to uninstall Flask from my computer.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see, Forex Python.
Yeah, because if you look at the error, it's if you look at the trace, it's pointing to the Python that's inside your local version of the Flask. Right?
So this Flask.
Yeah, that
is. Talking about right here?
Yes,
or right here?
That is your local version of the Flask.
Why is this the local version or this? Sorry, which one? This one?
Line 240. So the line before, yes, that one. If you look at the path, it's inside library frameworks, and that is your local version of the Python.
What? So what? How do you know that it's local? What's cluing you into that?
Well, because the folder library frameworks, that is the default Mac OS folder where it installed the local version of the libraries
Okay, so
or frameworks.
this frameworks is kind of like that's for local versions of library of stuff.
Exactly. So
Okay.
if how can we know if the Flask is using a version that's inside your virtual environment? Then it would be inside the virtual environments folder.
Oh, so we could just look in the folder as well?
Yeah.
So just like, should we try that real quick?
Sure.
Python. Oh, this isn't even. This is. I guess this is the font. Well, this would be the one without the VENV.
Hmm. So if you look at a lib,
so Flask needs to be in here.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Because that's the purpose of virtual environment is that everything that's required to be installed, it should only be installed inside this particular virtual environment, separated from your local environments.
So does that mean every time I make a new application, I need to install Flask?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. See, I haven't been having to do that, which has been kind of nice, but then I'm running into. Then I wasted multiple hours trying to fix this. Okay, so I guess let's go back into the virtual environment and install, right? So
it is a little bit annoying, but if you look at it, it's nice and annoying at the same time because the good part is that each virtual environment, each assignment is not contaminated with one another.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So I just installed it. I think Forex is already installed, but let's check pip list. Okay, so I'm going to check pip. So basically, when I was looking at pip list, it didn't have Flask before. And now it does. So now it should work. Okay. So now I'm going to run Flask. And now it should work. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Hi.
Thanks so much.
High five.
That's huge.
Hey, no worries.
That took way too long, but it does kind of make sense. It was kind of like I was doing everything else. I was like, I've got the right Python, but it did make sense because I was able to use Forex Python from the terminal. I was like, because I was checking, and I was like, well, it's working, so it has to do something with Flask, and I didn't think about that. So, okay, good to know.
I'm a little bit surprised that Springboard didn't make a more, detailed explanation about installation between the local machine and the virtual environment because I think this is like the most confusing part for beginners. Yeah.
No, I mean, definitely I found some, I find like sometimes the videos, they cover the simplest things a lot, and then they just kind of like leave off some of the details where I'd rather kind of have the videos mention some of the, hey, remember this, or you might have an issue with this, or at least write it somewhere, because I feel like it's wasted a lot of time. But
yeah.
Anyways.
And like the trickiest part is that even when you go to like Stack Overflow, there's like answers there, but they are really confusing.
Yes. So, that's been my biggest thing is a lot of times, like, I'll ask the TA something, and then they'll be like, oh, here's this article on it on Stack Overflow. But I just find, it's hard to even tell. A lot of times it's someone presenting a problem that they're having, and then the people sort of answering it in different ways. And it's kind of hard to really get a straight answer out of it. Not to mention, like, a lot of times it's stuff in the language you don't know about yet. And so it's kind of like, sometimes I find myself just getting more confused from the Stack Overflow or not really trusting it because it's like someone else comments, oh, that's not really the right way to do it either, kind of thing.
Exactly. And that is another important skill for a good developer, is that you need to be able to discern proper answer from your search. Yeah. All right, let's get into the Forex.
Yeah.
So first, congratulations, you passed the assignments.
Great.
So all the things that we are going to talk about, just like improvements and things like that.
Okay.
So the fine. Yeah. So the first thing I want to compliment is just that you included the requirements file. Good job, because I had most of the mentees I talked to so far, they all forget to put in the requirements file.
Yeah.
And then looking at the files, give me 1 second. Yeah, and if you look at line 42, where you are trying
to something, they didn't really explain, so I